Superman!
Superman.
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 I'll destroy you.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. I had a chance to see the new Superman movie. This will be my review. There is a lot to talk about. So if you're not already, go see this movie as soon as possible. But congratulations to everyone who's been asking for a new Superman movie. It felt like for a while we weren't going to get one. James Gunn is using the movie as a sort of proof of concept of his reboot of the DC movies from Zack Snyder's DCEU into his own DCU. They literally just had some jokes on Rick and Morty with both of them guest starring, joking about the new Superman movie and the reboot itself. And if you couldn't tell from the trailers, this new Superman movie could not feel more different. It's a huge change from Henry Cavill's Man of Steel and even the other previous versions of Superman, like even Christopher Reeve a little bit, Brandon Routh, and so on, even Tyler Hoechlin, the other TV Superman like Tom Welling's Smallville Superman, although there is a lot of Smallville vibes baked into the movie. We will get into that during the video. All the trailers, to their credit, didn't really do the movie any favors, though. I will address some of the weaker parts of the movie. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but overall it does feel like James Gunn's DCU will be totally fine. I will be doing more detailed breakdowns of all the Easter eggs in the movie, all the post-credit scenes, later this week after the movie does release in theaters everywhere, so be sure to subscribe to get everything, and when you do go see the movie, stay through all the credits. There are multiple post-credit scenes. James Gunn called this the most comic book movie he's ever made, and after actually seeing the whole movie, I do agree. His Suicide Squad movie, his Marvel movies, the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise are all based on comic books with a lot of super deep-cut references that only someone who loves comics could actually make in their movies. But his Superman movie is probably the movie of his that's most like an actual comic book come to life. Like sitting in a theater, you actually get the experience of what it was like reading one of the classic Silver Age DC comics back in the day. There are a lot of more specific comic books that inspired the actual movie itself, like Grant Morrison, Superman, All-Star Superman, with a lot of Frank Quitely designs like the Superman robots you see in the trailers. A lot of other details like that in the movie, too.
I'm not messing around. I'm doing important stuff.
Where you get a lot of crazy world-ending threats happening all around him, but the story stays very grounded in human relationships and emotions. David Corenswet's Superman in the movie feels very human-like. We are seeing his inner life in a way that we have never seen before on screen. Some of the big changes from previous iterations of Superman in the movies. Like they're telling a story in the movie that's very personal to Superman himself. It gets into his emotional journey way more that we haven't seen before. The human side of what makes him tick, the human side of what his fears and vulnerabilities are, in addition to just his physical fears, like the physical threats that you see him face, the big battles that he has. Even though the Superman movie takes place in the present day of the DCU, the characters in the universe are all inspired more by the Silver Age tropes in DC Comics, where it gets way more sci-fi, way crazier and outlandish. So you have things like Superman fighting giant kaiju at the same time that he's dealing with pocket dimensions, magic users, and other really powerful metahumans. And you have people like Lex Luthor conducting really gruesome science experiments with his evil genius. He does feel like an actual threat in a way that a lot of other Lex Luthors didn't quite feel like they were up to the task of defeating Superman. Like, you always went into movies previously expecting, just waiting for Superman to lose it on Lex Luthor, and that was the end. Whereas in this movie, you do feel like at a couple points, Lex Luthor has Superman dead to rights, and there's nothing that Superman can do to actually beat him, until, unbelievably, he does find a way to actually stop him. And the movie is basically telling the story of America, according to James Gunn, and I do agree with him. Like, the Superman movie is meant to be the story of America in that an immigrant, Kal-El, comes from Krypton, crashes into the United States as a baby, and grows up learning basic human kindness and values, morality, from the most inherently good, nicest parents you could possibly imagine, compared to the way that a lot of the other characters in the movie grew up in vastly worse situations. So that is, as an adult, Superman inherently believes in the goodness of humans, regardless of the evil things that they do, like Lex Luthor during the movie. And the whole movie tries to test that theory, like holds his feet to the fire, question whether or not he is correct in his very moral belief system. Lois Lane acts kind of like a counterbalance to Superman's ethos in the same way that Lex Luthor does. Like, Lois is a much more pragmatist to Superman's idealism.
This is how you're gonna be?
I'm not the one being interviewed, Superman.
Then you have Lex Luthor, who is like the most cynical take on modern humanity. There's a lot of modern day parallels you're meant to draw from the movie. James Gunn confirmed this after the fact too. He didn't just set out to make them extremely on the nose, but you can draw a lot of parallels to modern day real world billionaires with Lex Luthor. Like, oh, I can see a couple real life people in him right here. Without getting into super spoilers, you've seen all the trailers. The trailers kind of convey this with the different fights you see Superman having. The movie is structured kind of like several episodes in Superman's life, as if you're watching a week in Superman's life and just seeing him kind of go through it like a blue-collar working man, putting his boots on every day and going to work. That's why the first official image of the movie that James Gunn released was Superman literally putting his boots back on to go back out and deal with this giant creature in the background, like just another day in the coal mines. And they use these different episodes, these different adventures, to show you what makes Superman, why he's the greatest superhero on the planet. He has this ultimate power, and we will get into the power scaling of the current DCU in my full breakdown and Easter eggs video, because there's a lot to talk about there in terms of how they balance everyone's powers and abilities. But they use all these different episodes in the movie to show you why Superman is the greatest, not because he does have all this power, but because he has the wisdom and the maturity to use it wisely. And James Gunn, through the course of the movie, also does a good job of showing you why his powers are not the most interesting part of Superman. Some of the other most important things that I think the movie does really well, and like this is really big stuff, is David Corenswet is amazing as both Clark Kent and Superman. Like, you can't be amazing at Superman but be kind of a weak Clark Kent. Clark Kent is probably like one of the most important parts of the actual character himself.
Yeah, it's all there in my article.
And I'd actually have to make it through your writing, Clark. Knowledge is worth many sacrifices. That isn't one of them.
Ha ha ha, very funny, Lois.
You can really tell with this new version of Superman, James Gunn's priorities for the characters when it came to casting the movie is that David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan's audition scene was that interview scene of the two of them in the trailers. It was also a big chemistry test too, where she holds his feet to the fire on all the stuff that he's been doing around the world recently as Superman, and he tries to defend his actions. Their chemistry is off the charts. Like, you could just tell, like, no. Like, they have to be amazing together. The Clois in the movie has to be amazing to make a Smallville reference. But remember, there are a lot of Smallville vibes baked into the movie itself in a number of different ways, not just Easter eggs in the background. And it'll remind you a lot of the way Christopher Reeve could turn on a dime from Clark Kent to Superman, like just turn it on like a switch. This movie does feel a lot like a Christopher Reeve Superman movie mixed with Smallville on steroids. So obviously one of like the next real big changes in terms of previous Superman movies, like not just Henry Cavill's Superman, other Superman movies too, is the inclusion of the dog, Krypto. Krypto probably wound up being one of the MVPs of the actual movie next to Jimmy Olsen, who is also like the best version of Jimmy Olsen so far. If you do hate dogs for some wild reason, you probably will not enjoy this movie as much as everybody else. So the whole idea here is, big change from previous Superman movies is that Krypto is a core part of the movie. He's not just window dressing or comedic relief that pops up every once in a while. David Corenswet, to his credit, is like the second coming of Christopher Reeve in a good way. I feel like that's a good thing. Nicholas Hoult's Lex Luthor, very much inspired by Michael Rosenbaum's Lex from Smallville. It's not just other details and background Easter eggs, like I said. Rachel Brosnahan, razor sharp as Lois. Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner. There'll be a lot of opinions about this just because his Green Lantern is very goofy, but that's also on purpose. It serves an important function in the movie. It's a feature, not a bug. When it comes to stuff like the bowl cut, this will be controversial as well too. James Gunn did not force the bowl cut on him. Nathan Fillion was like, I want to make it clear I made them let me have the bowl cut because he wanted to be more comic book accurate himself.
You know about the hypno glasses.
Now she does.
Well, I'm not saying who he is, just that he wears hypno glasses.
There are many other characters that we need to talk about too, like Hawkgirl, Metamorpho, Mr. Terrific. This would be like a 4-hour YouTube video if I dug deep into like every single character, so I'll try to cut it shorter for this particular video. All of them do great with what they're given in the movie. Now, some of them are bigger characters than others, like Mr. Terrific, I think gets a little more time in the movie than the other Justice Gang characters. Cannot wait to see more of them in Peacemaker Season 2 and see them dig deeper in future movies and TV shows, but they do feel like background characters. Like, even though it does feel like the movie is overcrowded, that doesn't get quite as bad as the trailers make it seem. There's a lot of world building going on here for James Gunn's DCU. Like I said, it's meant to set off his whole DCU. It's sort of like a template of what's to come, like a proof of concept. But to its credit, it doesn't get to Iron Man 2 levels of hijacking the plot in service of just setting up 1,000 other things. But overall, the movie is meant to leave you with this overriding sense of hope about the state of the world in real life. Like, we're not all gonna die in some chaos trash fire tomorrow after you walk out of the movie like, oh, things aren't so bad. So now that we've addressed most of the good stuff in the movie, I'll talk about some of the more weak points without turning this into like an 8 to 10 hour YouTube video. Just to address some of the weaknesses. I said it's a bunch of episodes, like a bunch of days in Superman's life strung together. Some of those episodes do not play as strong as others. There are a couple points where the movie does drag a little bit, and it is a very, very silly tone of the film. It does feel like a very big budget, polished version of Smallville. It is a feature, not a bug. Personally, I loved watching the Smallville TV show for everything that it was. Like, I just completely accepted it for what it was. That was not a problem for me in this movie, but the vibe is extremely different from the vastly more serious tone of the Henry Cavill Man of Steel Superman movie. Next big example of this phenomenon is the actual trunks. I didn't mind the trunks, but the trunks are kind of a love it or hate it kind of situation. Like, they're very polarizing within the fandom.
I wear my trunks on the outside of my pants. Like, it's liberating.
So if you do not like silly Superman, you will probably not enjoy this movie as much. This is meant to be a very family-friendly movie that you can also bring your kids to. There are a couple big twists in the movie and characters that don't quite land as well as others, but if you can get past the campiness, then you will probably be fine. Like, if you absolutely hated Smallville, then you might be in trouble though. I almost forgot to talk about the music. We have to talk about the music. It's fantastic. It feels very classic John Williams inspired, and they bake a lot of the classic John Williams, Christopher Reeve Superman theme into this as well. But John Murphy came back to do some more music, so it'll actually feel very classical. If you like the classic Superman music, you will enjoy this. I've seen a lot of leaked versions coming out on Twitter, but I haven't seen any official versions or like official playlists yet. What I'm probably going to do is wait till I see the movie a couple more times before I do a ranking with like all the other Superman movies that have come out so far, but I will try to do some kind of ranking at some point. So once you do have a chance to see the movie in theaters, post all your reactions in the comments below. My post-credit scene video will probably post on Thursday, and my full breakdown of all the Easter eggs should post on Friday. I've got a couple other videos planned for this weekend too, so go see the movie right now. That's right, see it. Go see it right now. Everybody click here for that post-credit scene video and click here for that full breakdown and Easter eggs video. I'll update the links as soon as I post those in a couple days. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.